for the very first time. I think the composition was telling. There were 44 countries united, discussing the challenges of today, and it showed how much Russia is isolated by now, but it also showed how strong the support for Ukraine is. The Prime Minister was present. President Zelensky joined us via video conference, and it was an important message and signal to show that the European countries are determined to defend the rule of law, the international right, the charter that we all hold so dear. Of course, we had today also then the discussion on Ukraine and how we can support Ukraine as long as it takes. I'm very encouraged that we managed yesterday to close the latest rounds of hard-biting sanctions against Russia in record time. Once again, we've moved fast and we have moved with force. We've made progress on the oil price cap. With our enhanced export ban, we continue to undermine Putin's ability to wage war in Ukraine. And with our widened import ban, we deprive him further of important revenues. This shows Putin that the European Union is determined to continue making him pay for his war of aggression. And in parallel, we continue to stand firmly with Ukraine. Team Europe, that is the EU and the member states, is Ukraine's most important supporter alongside the United States. We are providing by now, since the beginning of the war, 19 billion euros for Ukraine. This is without counting military assistance. And this includes that a further 2 billion euros in macro-financial assistance will be released in the coming days. Of course, we will not only have to look at the immediate relief with financial support, but also at the midterm, the reconstruction. Supporting Ukraine in this endeavor is the purpose of a joint conference that the Commission and the G7 presidency will hold at the end of this month in Berlin. It was very good to hear the other leaders on this very important issue on reconstruction of Ukraine. What is already clear is that we will have to identify new financing sources because this is a massive amount that will be needed. And we will have to establish a very structured approach to ensure predictability for the financing, transparency on the how it's going to be done, and of course, sustainability of funding for Ukraine. Then the second point we've been discussing was energy. Today, 7 months into the war that Russia has unleashed against Ukraine, we are much better prepared for the winter than it was the case before. Just to give you a figure, at the beginning of the war, the overall imported gas, 41% was Russian gas. Today we're down to 7.5%. And that shows how much we have progressed in diversifying away from Russia, getting rid of our dependency from Russian fossil fuels and turning towards more reliable supplier. Our storages are filled by 90% by now. This is, compared to last year, same time, 15% more. So we are in a very good state where that is concerned. And therefore, the discussion focused on the question of the high gas prices overall and the high electricity prices. As you know, I have sent a letter to detail out a roadmap, how to approach these topics. So the question of negotiating a corridor for decent prices with our reliable suppliers, or, for example, looking at how to limit prices in the gas market overall, and to look at how to limit the influence of gas in the price formation of electricity. All these topics have been discussed with the view that within the roadmap, more detailed proposals will come from the Commission for the next weeks ahead of us. One thing is very clear, there's a broad support that next spring, at the end of the winter, when our storages will be depleted, It is of paramount importance that we have a joint procurement of gas so that we avoid to outbid each other, but that we have a collective bargaining power and that we put that in place. All these views on the gas market, the electricity prices are so important because we have to keep our single market together and we have to avoid fragmentation. I emphasize once again how crucial that is, and this is an opinion that was widely shared. Time and again, the single market has proven to be our single best asset in times of crisis. Therefore, we need to preserve it. It's of paramount importance that we have a level playing field and that we avoid fragmentation and distortion. On the contrary, we have to make possible that there are investments. We have to double down on investments in homegrown renewables, not only for the climate, but also because the transition to the clean energy is the best way to gain independence and to have security of energy supply. This is why we will be looking at additional funding to be channeled through Repower EU. We need all countries to have the necessary resources to invest in clean energy. Finally, last but not least, a word on the protection of critical infrastructure. What happened with Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 is clearly the type of threats we will have to get used to, but more importantly, be prepared for. And as you know, the Commission presented a 5-point plan on preparedness, on stress testing, on response, on international coordination, and on information exchange. Our work starts now. It is very good that we have already legislation in place. During the French presidency it was developed. So we are anticipating now the entry into force of these new EU rules on the resilience of critical entities and cybersecurity, and thus strengthening our critical infrastructure. Of course, we will also be reaching out to international partners, first and foremost NATO. The resilience of critical infrastructure is bound to become a crucial aspect of our EU-NATO cooperation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam President.